Okay, thanks, Omar. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So welcome to the Edinburgh Medical School webinar 2020. And my name is Denise, and I'm a current Year 5 medical student. So today I have with me Roger, who has graduated from Edinburgh and is currently working in the UK as a foundation year doctor. And so we were both previously from the IMU Partner Medical School track who have transferred to Edinburgh. So it's my pleasure today to have this time with all of you to give more information about why you should consider coming to Edinburgh. And so you're making a substantial investment in your future, and you want to make sure that you're making the right choice for yourself in terms of future prospects, study opportunities, and all kinds of other reasons that make a university the right fit for you. So feel free to put your comments, questions into the chat box, and we'll try to address them at the end. And you may also wish to unmute yourself and ask us questions directly. So without further ado, here's some information for you about why you want to consider studying in Edinburgh and what makes Edinburgh stand out from the rest. Okay, so this is the list of content that we'll run through today. So we're talking about Edinburgh in general, about the medical school, transfer details, accommodation experiences, living expenses, curriculum and assessments, our experiences, and postgrad prospects, and some take-home messages. Right, so hopefully some of you here will have had the chance to visit Edinburgh. It's a beautiful city with many UNESCO World Heritage Sites. It's voted as the second best city in the world to live in. And Edinburgh is a student-friendly, safe, and walkable city with about 100,000 students calling Edinburgh their home. And there's also many convenient ways of transportation here, such as the buses, trams, trains, Uber, and if you're confident enough, you can also choose to cycle here. And people here generally tend to be quite friendly. So the pictures here in this slide show how Edinburgh looks like on sunny days. But normally it looks a bit more like this. We get approximately 129 days of rain per year with an average temperature of about 15 degrees. So we encourage everyone transferring to the UK to get a waterproof jacket as the weather here can be quite erratic. So are there any Harry Potter fans here? If you are, there's no better city to be in than Edinburgh. So J.K. Rowling famously created her story of the boy wizard while living in Scotland's capital. Before reaching global fame, she will work on her manuscripts for Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone in the city's cafes, such as the one seen here, the Elephant House, which attracts a lot of tourists every year. Edinburgh also has inspired the wizarding world with places like George Harrod's School and the Victoria Street that resembles Hogwarts and Diagon Alley, because you can see the cobblestones here and the shops around. And over here, you can see this is a picture of a tombstone in the popular Greyfriars Cemetery, which shows the tombstone of Thomas Riddle, which inspired J.K. Rowling to come up with Lord Voldemort's name. So Edinburgh also hosts various international events throughout the year, such as the International Film Festival, the Anime, as well as the Book Festival. And there is also a large-scale event called Fringe that takes place in August every year, where performers all across the world come to Edinburgh to perform on the streets, and this event normally draws in lots of tourists. So it's quite bustling and a lot of activities during the month of August. So if you're worried about missing home, there are many restaurants in Edinburgh where you can enjoy Asian cuisines, such as Chinese cuisine, Japanese, Korean, Thai, Indian, Malay, whatever you have, whatever you need, there is in Edinburgh. So one of it is the restaurant here. It's quite popular. It's called the Nanyang Malaysian Cuisine Restaurant. It serves Malaysian cuisine. So you don't have to worry about missing your curry chicken, chicken rice, sambal kangkong. We also have bubble tea here, so you don't have to worry about missing it. There's also many specialist shops, such as the Starlight Supermarket, that sells Asian ingredients that you need for cooking your own meals. There's also other shops selling ingredients like for Thai food or Malay or Indian food as well. So now let's move on to talk about the Edinburgh Medical School. So it's established in 1726. It's ranked 19 in the world currently. It's the second highest ranked medical school out of 34 medical schools in the UK, and its highest rank as compared to other IMU PMS. And it also boasts of strong research power, where we are renowned for our neuro research and Alzheimer's disease. We also discovered the Hep B vaccine as well as IVF treatment. And we are also world renowned for creating Dolly the sheep, the first cloned animal in the world. And famous alumni of the school include Charles Darwin, James Simpson, as well as Joseph Black. So moving on to the transfer details. This is a 6-year course, which comprises of 2 years of preclinicals, 1 year of intercalated, and 3 years of clinicals. So for IMU students, there are 2 options for those interested to transfer here. So you can either choose to transfer directly to year 4, where you will start your clinical phase straight away, or you can transfer to year 3, where you can do the intercalated biomedical science degree. So IELTS requirement requires you to have 7.5 overall with individual components of 7.0 each. So that is for my batch. So for your batch, I'm not sure, you got to check it out. So Edinburgh tends to place quite a high emphasis on academic achievements and IELTS, but it's also good to have extracurriculars so that you can appear more well-rounded. So for personal statements, I would personally recommend you to include about how your experiences in IMU or any life experiences has shaped you to become a better doctor, and why will you be a good fit for Edinburgh, and any long-term aspirations that you have as a future doctor. So tuition fees, you'll be expected to pay £49,900 per year. For that, that's for my batch as well. And IMU doesn't offer any formal bridging program, but we do have a 1-day orientation where the medical school will bring you around the different campuses to orientate you to the surroundings there. So now I'll show you some pictures of the main campuses that you'll be studying in. So you can see here, this is the Royal Infirmary of Edinburgh, which is one of the main teaching hospitals. Some of you will have cardio, respi, or orthopedics placements here. And next to the hospital is the Chancellor's Building, where you have your lectures and your tutorials. And there's also a clinical skills center in here with a simulated hospital ward for practicing procedures, a simulation room to simulate resuscitation stations. That's something new that IMU didn't teach us. And there's also a Harvey cardiopulmonary trainer, which is a mannequin that simulates many cardiac diseases. And is also able to emulate different heart murmurs so that you can practice on the trainer before you go and see real patients. And over here, we have Western General Hospital, which is another main teaching hospital where some of you will be assigned there for your neuro, infections, and GI placements. This is TVET, a place in the medical school campus in Central, where anatomy labs and tutorials will be held. And as you can see here is the Anatomy Museum, where you can go there in your free time to look at the plasticine specimens of human anatomy. Previously, we used to have an anatomy spot test in year 4, but not sure whether is it taken away for your year. So here is George Square, where there's a cluster of university buildings in Central, where exam revision tutorials tend to be held by different clubs and societies from medical school. And over here is the main library. So most of the placements will be in Edinburgh, but there is a chance that you may get posted to the peripheries for your placements in year 5 and 6. But don't worry, accommodation will be provided. And the advantage of that is that as students posted there tend to be smaller in number, so the teaching will be more focused and more directed, but commuting tends to be quite a hassle depending on the locations of your placement, and you'll also be paying for an empty room in Edinburgh. So this shows the different placement locations that you can get allocated to. So in year 4, they tend to allocate us to central placements instead of peripheries because they understand that as new transferring students, we will require some time to adapt to the environment in Edinburgh. So most of us tends to be allocated peripheries only in year 5 and 6. So the next few slides will be about the types of accommodation here. Some of you may be interested to stay in catered accommodations for your first year here. And Pollock Halls is where most of the first year students tend to stay in. So you can choose between ensuite or shared accommodation. And there's also a restaurant where you can have your meals. And if you pay for it, it's included in a rent, 14 meals per week. And there's also other facilities like squash courts, study rooms, music rooms, computing labs, and a shop and bar. You can also opt for self-catered accommodation if you prefer to have your own kitchen to cook your meals. So there's a mixture of university-owned corridor-style residences and purpose-built flats. So same as Pollock's, you can choose ensuite or shared accommodations, and there'll be flat managers that's in charge of the maintenance and welfare of the students there. Alternatively, there's also the option of staying in private student accommodations or private flats. So this is the current private student accommodation that I'm staying in. So so this is the cost of accommodation depending on where you choose to stay. So I'll leave you to read the cost of each accommodation. Also, I put a note here that university accommodation is only guaranteed for your first year here, which is year 4 for you guys. So after which you will have to move out. So some students prefer to search for a flat where they can stay for all 3 years to avoid the hassle of moving too many times. So this is a map showing the locations of buildings that I've mentioned previously. So sorry, it's quite blur, but if you can see, this is the Pollock Halls here. And this is a central area, which is where George Square is, the main library. So most of your revision tutorials for exams will be held in this area. And over here, there'll be the main shopping belt. So you can get your clothes, your gadgets, your shoes. The pharmacy is also over there. And towards this direction is to Western General Hospital. And towards here is to the Royal Infirmary and Chancellor's Building. So normally we advise the students to stay somewhere in the middle so that you can have easier transportation to either of the main hospitals, because more buses tend to service the routes over here. So for living expenses in Edinburgh, groceries tend to cost about 30 to 50 pounds per week, depending on what you want to eat. And public transport costs 48 pounds per month. And this is regardless of the distance and travel time. So I will strongly advise all of you who are coming to Edinburgh to buy these monthly passes. But if you don't want to, you can also get the single ticket, which costs 170 pounds per trip. Entertainment-wise, it's about 5 to 15 pounds, depending on what you eat or drink. And for those that like to go to pubs or for whiskey or drink, it will probably cost a bit more. Cars tend to be quite cheap in the UK, but there's expensive insurance. So some of us would get cars because we'll be allocated peripheries in year 5 and 6, so it makes it more convenient for transportation and getting groceries there. But if you don't want to, it's fine as well, because there's alternative transportation like trains and buses that you can get. So moving on to the curriculum and assessment. So for year 4, there are 2 semesters, and you'll be going through cardio, respi, neuro, GP, GI, orthopedics, infections, team, rheumatology, and endocrine. So each of these are 4 weeks each, except for infections, team, rheumatology, and endocrine, which are 2 weeks each. And be required to sign off clinical observations via an app called Pebble throughout the year, where you can get a doctor to observe you doing procedures, performing physical examinations, taking history, etc. They've also recently done away with case reports and introduced a clinical portfolio, which allow to see a wider breadth of patients and record them down. So if I'm not wrong, for year 4, you need to have 15 cases throughout the year, and you will have to write up a short reflective essay for each of them. Assessment-wise, there will be 2 formative progress tests that evaluates your academic progress in each semester, but they are not counted, and just for you to have a gauge of where you are in terms of learning. At the end of year 4, you will sit for a summative theory exam comprising of 160 MCQs and very short answer questions split into 2 papers. There's also an OSCE, which has 10 stations, testing everything they've gone through in year 4. So you'll be also assigned a clinical tutor associate, which are doctors who function as personal clinical teachers who can go to for extra teaching sessions and mentoring. If say you need help in history taking or a cardio exam, you can always go to them if you don't get enough practice during your formal tutorials. So they're sort of like tuition teacher. And you'll also be assigned a professional mentor that takes care of your career progression, academic and social well-being. So this is a sample timetable of how things might be like for you. So this is timetable of rheumatology. So for rheumatology, you'll be assigned different numbers. So depending on your number, you'll be assigned to go for walk arounds at different times, and also clinics. So clinics tends to be in the morning as well as in the afternoon. And in the afternoon, there's also tutorials and whole class teaching. So you won't be in the hospital every day. So it depends on your timetable. So for other placements like cardio or neuro, they give you the option to sign up for whatever clinics that you want to go for. So it gives you flexibility to arrange your own timetable. So you can have like a 3-day work week and then 2 days off, for example. So I'll now pass the time on to Roger, who will be going through the remainder of the slides.
All right, hi guys. Yeah, so I'm Roger. I'm currently a FY1 doctor working in the UK, almost finishing my first year here. So I mean, like, Denise has just finished her 4th year, so I'm just going to talk more about the 5th year and 6th year in Edinburgh itself. So regarding year 5, it's split into 2 semesters. So the year group itself will be split into 2 different groups. One of the groups will be doing pediatrics, obs and gynae, and psychiatry. So these are the huge specialties that we learn in year 5 itself. So the first 3 I mentioned is usually 6 weeks long. So 6 weeks of pediatrics, 6 weeks of obs and gynae, and 6 weeks of psychiatry. Whereas, with regards to the renal, urology, hematology, that group is usually 2 weeks blocks, because they are more specialized, and what we need to know about them is just the general things that we need to know. And then other interesting things that we do in year 5 is the SSC 5A. It's the student selective component 5, which is 5A is research and 5B is more teaching. So I think so it's incorporated within the semester itself, where you do 2 weeks of renal and then you get a week of research. So the research is something that you learn to do and practice on research. You get to choose a consultant or a fellow who can guide you through this research, and at the end of the year you just have to produce a report regarding your research. And then SSC 5B is more of teaching, where you learn how to teach your younger peers. It can be anything with regards to like OSCE. It can be a certain procedure or a certain skill. And like Denise mentioned, every year we still do have this clinical observation where you get, I think every different specialty you get different amounts of history taking or clinical examination that you have to complete for each specialty and get signed off by your consultant. And the portfolio cases 10 throughout the whole semester itself. And assessment-wise, there's formative progressive tests. The prescribing exam is formative because in year 6 you'll do the actual prescribing exam. So that exam allows you to prescribe once you become a doctor itself. Theory exams and OSCEs. So the OSCEs are mainly focused on pediatrics, obs and gynae, and psychiatry. You get a small portion with regards to the specialty, which I mentioned, which is the second part of the semester itself. So I mean, like OSCE-wise, it's quite similar to the year 4. You're just generally trying to see if you're able to ask like relevant questions related to each specialty. So for example, the obs and gynae, menstrual history, obstetric history, common cases and emergency cases that you see in each specialty, and not the very rare diseases that you see. All right, moving on to year 6. Dennis, are you changing to year 6? Yeah, so moving on to year 6. So it's the final year is more of tying everything that you've learned throughout, your 4th and 5th clinical years in Edinburgh. So we do a lot of general stuff, general surgery, medicine of the elderly, which is like general medicine for the elderly patients, general practice, general medicine, emergency medicine, anesthetics, and critical care. So what they want us to know as students is trying to put everything we have learned throughout year 4 and 5 together in this year itself. So in this year, you get more autonomy with regards to seeing patient earlier. There is quite a wide range of variety of food there. Asian food that you can enjoy. So do not be afraid. That you do not get enough Asian experience there. So the food there so far has been quite good. Japanese food, Thai food, Indian food. There is also multiple like Chinese and Malay restaurants that you can go and experience food there as well. And so other than that, so one thing I'd like to mention is with regards to like you do get a lot of autonomy yourself. It's very different from IMU itself, because a lot of when it comes to clinical years, there's a lot of studying that has to be done through yourself. A lot of things has to be arranged yourself. So with regards to like clinics and stuff, during your rotations, you are the one that you are given the choice to go for it or not. There is not really a attendance system. So if you want to learn more from something, you can go for more things. If you're interested in surgery, you can spend more time in theaters. You can swap with your friends who are less interested, to go for more theater sessions and stuff. So a lot of it is less spoon feeding in Edinburgh itself, and I think it's similar to just generally in clinical years in the UK itself. So I mean, I can talk more about my electives, that I have chosen. So I did 6 weeks of my electives in South
Sorry, Roger. The meeting is going to end in like a minute, so I'll send out another link so we can just continue from there. All right?
All right.
Guys, I'll send out another link. Sorry about this. All right.